Good evening. Tonight, we go after the latest chapter in the story of a woman who fought her way back from alcoholism and despair to become again one of the most compelling figures in show business. She is Lillian Roth, a million-dollar film star at 18, an alcoholic at 30, a great torch singer only 5 years ago, and today a woman with a new story to tell. If you're curious to know why Lillian Roth says that the past 5 years have been among the most difficult in her life, if you want to hear her thoughts on her conversion to Catholicism, and if you want to know why Miss Roth says that despite her recent success, she is forever trying to fill what she calls an aching, a frightening void within herself, we'll go after those stories in just a moment. My name is Wallace. The cigarette is Parliament.
The new high filtration filter, Parliament, presents the Mike Wallace interview.
We'll talk with Lillian Roth in just a moment. How does your cigarette stack up against other brands? Well, if Parliament is your smoke, you're smoking the best, because now Parliament with the recessed filter is best. The new hi-fi Parliament. And here's why. First, Parliament is best because only Parliament gives you over 30,000 traps. No other popular cigarette delivers less nicotine and tar. Second, unlike ordinary filters, Parliament's filter is recessed, set deep down inside here, so the trapped nicotine and tar can't get on your lips. And third, because it's recessed, there's no bitter taste of trapped nicotine and tar to spoil Parliament's pure tobacco flavor. It's a clean, satisfying smoke. And remember, Parliament is continuously tested and reported by the United States Testing Company, one of the world's leading independent testing laboratories. Over 30,000 traps, exclusive recessed filter, flavor pure protection. Yes, smoke the best. Hi-Fi Parliament, now at popular price. And now story. Several years ago, an all but forgotten entertainer by the name of Lillian Roth wrote a brutally frank autobiography called I'll Cry Tomorrow. It was made into a successful Hollywood film. Miss Roth herself was swamped with offers to appear in television, nightclubs. Since then, Miss Roth has forged a new life, which she has written about in a new book, to be published later this month, called Beyond My Worth. Lillian, first of all, let me ask you this. After your remarkable comeback a few years ago, I'd imagine that the general public's impression of you is that of a happy and successful woman who has finally found her way. Yet, in your new book, Beyond My Worth, you wrote this. You said, I've had mornings recently when I woke up and my whole life seemed in chaos. And I said to myself, I've fallen back again. Why have you felt that way?
Well, Mike, I guess it's something that stems from my childhood. I've never quite felt up to the many amazing things that happened to me. I've never felt at school that I was as pretty as the next child or as clever as the next child. And anytime anything happened for me, I just thought it was luck. And that was mostly all through my life. And if I did a performance and the audience were wonderful to me, I thought it really wasn't good enough. It could have been better. I've never felt quite adequate. And of course,
so even now, in spite of the fact that you have overcome what obstacles you have overcome...
Well, you see, when I say beyond my worth, I honestly feel I haven't done anything extraordinary. The public has been amazing. I've gotten mail from all over the world. You'd think I was a miracle woman, and I'm not. It's through these people and with the help of God that I have been able to overcome so much. But the inadequacy and the guilt within me is still very strong, and many times I feel I'm just not I'm not what I seem to be.
I gather that you find a real responsibility, an awesome responsibility, in the very fact of your comeback.
I think that the battle of success is probably more difficult than the climb. People expect too much from you, or rather you want to be all that people expect from you. I shouldn't say that they expect too much from you, because they're pretty good about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it isn't only that you have to deliver the gift of your entertainment as the good Lord gifted you, but there are other things in your life, and I've never professed to be a saint or a martyr. There are many people in the world overcoming greater problems, which I tell are beyond my worth, that comparatively speaking, mine seems simple, but this inner conflict, this inner thing that I have, I think, too, telling the truth about it makes people realize that they're not alone. You see, people used to be able to say, Lillian, let me help you up, after I took that first wrong step alone.
Yeah.
But now, through the mail, I started to feel that people were wondering if they could talk up there to me, and I'm not up there. I don't want to be up there where people are concerned, only as a performer.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be right alongside with them.
You get a tremendous number of letters, I gather, calls
Yes.
from people who are also in a kind of pain and trying to find their way, and figure you've done it, perhaps you can help them to find it for themselves.
Well, it isn't just problem letters I get. After all, I'm not the know-all, see-all, and I haven't the answer to everything, but the type mail I get comes from psychiatrists, doctors, writers, priests, ministers, and there are lonely ministers, nuns, and priests all over the world, and I can read between their lines, too, and they think that this certainly shows the grace of God being bestowed. And my difference, of course, is that I don't think God graces one person and not the next, but I am very grateful for their affection.
Tell me this, does the fear of sliding back, of hitting rock bottom again, does that worry you, or do you feel you're over that hump?
Well, they say that, even if you should slip back a little, it isn't really slipping back. If you fall slightly, that's just another step up. I mean, to step down is to step up. Sometimes we're forced to be knocked down a little bit. Then we gather our forces together, and we're that much stronger when we go again. Now, I think once you've hit the bottom, you're not afraid down there. You just feel you don't want to disappoint people.
Mm-hmm. Of course, one of the things that sparked your comeback was your book, I'll Cry Tomorrow, and I'm sure that your latest book, which is also quite revealing, will do your career no harm. Let me ask you this. Did you never think it undignified, Lillian? Did you never think it in bad taste for a woman to write so candidly of her personal life and of the life of others?
Truthfully, I wasn't happy about any of it. I think I told you when I spoke to you a year ago, there's no glory in being a glorified alcoholic. If these were the steps I had to take, and there seemed to be a force that worked it out. I know when I first worked on my book coming from Australia 10 years ago, and through the years, speaking of I'll Cry Tomorrow, I shelved it. I closed the book and said, that woman.
Uh-huh.
But after This Is Your Life, after Ralph had prevailed on me, and even there I didn't want to do it. I was hesitant. And this terrible panic, when I first went to Australia, it just isn't a good feeling to know that you have other gifts, but I rated what was done. I mean, I rated the fact that I didn't deserve any better than to be called an alcoholic, and I don't know why I should have expected extra.
Well, why did you want to write about it? Why did you want to tell? And not only about yourself, but you wrote fairly graphically about, for instance, about being beaten by one husband, about your wedding night with another husband, a fairly prominent man, about emotional scenes with your mother. Why did you find it necessary to write about these things, Lillian?
Well, I didn't feel that I was writing an expose. I felt I was disclosing rather than exposing. My husband felt from the inception that if I wrote everything out, I remember when I first went to the hospital for slightly mentally unbalanced some 12, 13 years ago, I said even then I wanted to write a book, but then they told me everybody that comes in here has a book to write. So I kept it to myself for some time. But Bert told me it isn't a case of being a martyr. He said this, in telling all and freeing yourself, and the world being a big jury, they're very fair. And in doing that, there'll be somebody along, too, that will be helped. I'm not going to tell you that my thought was I'm going to go out and be a martyr now and help the world. I didn't feel that way. I was frightened to death when this book came out.
Diana Barrymore, who wrote a somewhat similar book, told us that she did it as a catharsis, to get the past out of her system. Was that, you smile when I say that.
Well, I really, I'm not living my past anymore. I'm creating new thoughts and new habits. A priest once told me, this may answer it by a thought, that there are certain bad characteristics or formation of a bad character that is always there with bad habits, but you can create good habits and work on them so often that you form a new character. And I feel that if, I'm not speaking necessarily about Miss Barrymore, but anyone that continues to live as they lived in the past isn't doing anything to send out a message or to help someone in distress. Not that they have to, but what is the sense of the book? If you're going to go to all this embarrassment, you might be helpful while doing it. And I think it has, well, I shouldn't speak about what it's proven, but it has helped many people be able to overcome certain pain that they've had.
I'm certain of that. Have you ever wondered, though, why the American public seems to be so fascinated with this kind of story? Is it possibly just the desire to look across the courtyard into somebody else's open window?
Well, I think where my story is concerned, it goes back to an old philosophy that I read that said, in each man's heart there's a secret sorrow that the world knows nothing about. And often we call a man cold when he's really just sad. And I think that humanity feel that their sorrow is for you and their compassion is for you, but it has touched a part of their heart that they will not open the door themselves. They won't even peek in. And in the subconscious, the tie is there.
They see little of themselves in you, and that is why they want to read and hear and...
Yes, and even youngsters that write to me, and they tell me they understand the problem at home more. And I just think it's reached, that's all.
Let's look at some of the things that you write about. One of them, which helped you rehabilitate yourself, has been religion. In your new book, you write with complete assurance, God loves me. How do you know he does?
Because I think God is all-loving, just as a parent would be, that they love their children, good, bad, or indifferent. And it's often been said, I believe, some in substance of the Bible is it's that little black sheep that strayed away that worries him so very much he hopes will come back someday.
Lillian, who is God?
God is everything that's quite wonderful, and you know, I always quote because I think that the authenticity of a thing, after all, I'm a new writer. I don't even know if I have a great talent except of telling of myself and giving of myself. But a man like Emerson said that God made almost everything he made had a crack in it. And I thought that was such a good thought. We don't have this feeling of perfection, but to please him, we'd like to improve ourselves. And I think he's all-loving, and he's always there. We just don't always know it.
Let me pursue this a little more specifically. You were born into a Jewish family, yet several years ago you converted to Catholicism. Why was Judaism apparently unsatisfactory, unfulfilling for you?
Oh, I don't think that Judaism was a case of unfulfillment. I think that Catholicism is the fulfillment of Judaism as far as the acceptance of the Messiah. My only difficulty has been in the last 2 years, with all my respect to the church, because it doesn't make me right and the church wrong. I can't go in and say, now this is Lillian's way of doing it. I just felt a certain man-made dogma, little things, simple as a child. They say come as little children. Well, some of the little flaws, or that I felt were flaws within myself that questioned, were childlike things. And I have never denied my Judaism, and as a matter of fact, I learned...
How can you convert from Judaism to Catholicism and yet not deny your Judaism?
Well, of course, I have a different theory. I believe that an Irishman's an Irishman, a Jew is a Jew, American Irishman, American Jew. I can't see saying that it is merely a religion. I don't go along with that. I think Christ on the cross, which I spoke to you last time, was a Jew who never denied his Judaism. And Christian came from the word follower of Christ. And so therefore that's an acceptance of the Jewish Messiah, and he stated he came to fulfill the law. So I don't see where there's a denial of Judaism, or how can you deny what you are?
You didn't feel the least bit disloyal when you turned from Judaism as a religion to Catholicism as a religion?
Well, in this way, the physical sense, the material sense, I do believe there is a time in the Bible that Christ says that they will mock you in my name's sake, and that and it did come in the minority. People were very good about it. They didn't care how I found God as long as I had him. But I don't think there was too much resentment. I did have feelings of guilt, but I would have to rise above it and try to get into a spiritual way and to my own self be true. You know, Mike, they wrote about you in the Ligorian, which Father Kleiber, who is a Jew and a priest, convert to Catholicism, and he sends me the Ligorian. And it's strange, a few weeks ago they had an article where you asked the Catholic Church some questions.
Yes.
While I was reading it, I also read an article about the five faces of a hypocrite. And I thought to myself, one of the things were those that profess to be a Christian, you know, and wear the face of a hypocrite. And I thought that went along with my thinking, that if I were to take and to continue taking sacraments at a time when I felt in the eyes of God I didn't go along with it, I would be wearing that face of a hypocrite. And although I'm lonely, not belonging at the moment... Have you forsaken Catholicism now? Well, I hope God hasn't forsaken me. That's the main point. And I feel that in conscience I can look up at him, and that what is right to do, he will lead me to. One wonderful thing about the Catholics and the Catholic Church, and my own people, too, is that they don't desert you. You may desert them, but they shall be back. But I think it's along the lines of wherever the good Lord wants you, that's where you'll be. You were a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Yes. Did you regard that... Are you still a member of AA? Well, I follow the principles. I believe with AA, of course, I don't advise this for a newcomer, but I think just as you get well after you come out of a hospital, I don't think that you have to sit in the hospital and come back every day. I think you use the medicines, and in this case, it's the suggestions and principles of AA. Did you regard, do members of AA regard it themselves as kind of a religion? No. To the best of my knowledge, they believe that AA will direct people back to their own religions or give them some spiritual contact with God. Back in 1955, one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous wrote a thought-provoking pamphlet in which he warned former alcoholics against resuming what he called, quote, our old and disastrous pursuit of personal power and prestige, public honors, and money. He suggested that these are egotistical, self-seeking, ephemeral things, and if the alcoholic or the former alcoholic were to lose them again, that could shatter a person all over again. Now, you are a fairly ambitious woman. Do you ever feel that perhaps you're pursuing a dangerous course now in going after prestige, money, public honor once again? Well, I'm pretty sure that when the good Lord put us on this earth, he knew that there were human footsteps to take, and he certainly doesn't want us to be a ward of the state. Whatever our job is, whether we're a truck driver and go back to trucking, or a waitress, go back to the waitress. Every job is important in life, and mine was to go back to singing, and as I said earlier, there's no glory in it. Now, these rules that you read, you see, when I joined AA, there was no such thing as a rule. There were suggestions. I wasn't anonymous of what I was drinking, of course, and I didn't wish this type of publicity. But I have found the press to be fair. I've said it over and over again. It came out, and they could just as well have gone to the morgue and dug up any story. I don't think that there is glory in saying, look, I want a lot of gold stars. I want to be up in lights because I'm a cured alcoholic. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous. I feel that I'm now, after 5 years, or 12 years that I have had my sobriety, free from the bonds of sympathy. I don't feel if the public come back 3 and 4 times, or I'm asked to appear places that many times, that they come back to see what an alcoholic that doesn't drink anymore looks like.
Lillian, in a moment I'd like to ask you about something that you write of quite movingly in your new book. You write, all people go through life with a void inside them. You write that even love and marriage probably doesn't banish entirely that feeling of aloneness, of lostness. You say the void seems to remain during life. I'd like to know why you say that. And we'll get Lillian Roth's answer in just 60 seconds.
Now, Parliament with recessed filter is best.
Best is the word for this new hi-fi Parliament. Over 30,000 traps. No other popular cigarette delivers less nicotine and tar. And because this filter is recessed, trapped nicotine and tar can't get on your lips. Let me demonstrate with this chalk. Just take any other filter cigarette. Chalk the filter, like this. Then Parliament's recessed filter set deep down inside here. Now, press both against glass. See? The ordinary filter leaves the smear. That's the point. Only in Parliament, the bitter nicotine and tar from the filter cannot get on your lips. Can't spoil Parliament's pure tobacco flavor. You get a clean, satisfying smoke.
Continuously tested by the independent laboratories of United States Testing Company. Smoke the best. Hi-Fi Parliament, now popular price.
That's the Parliament story. Parliament with the recessed filter is best. Try Parliament yourself. In your book you write, within us there seems to be an aching, a frightening void we are forever trying to fill, but never quite do. We're always alone. What do you mean?
You've never felt that feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the hundreds of people, of thousands of people I've met, it's a strange empathy I guess I get. And maybe at times, contrary to belief, I'm subject to a slight melancholy. But I look across the room at a person, and somehow the way the shoulder is, a certain look in the face, the age of the face, I know that the man has lived a life that hasn't had any great joy in it, that he's worked very hard. I never saw Death of a Salesman, but I imagine the expression that I've seen on the pictures of that man's face, I see in so many faces. And you want to go over and say, oh, I want to do something, and say something to you. And also I feel that when two people love each other and are married, the ache of loneliness for someone that's gone, that you wish could be part of this, and they're not there anymore to see it, your parents or your loved ones that can see all this. And also, you have your separate little problems, and you don't want to put it on one another. You don't want to tell of the fears. Lots of times, and Bert probably is watching tonight. He's in California. He hasn't been too well, and it's our first time we've been apart in 12 years, but you see, we're not really apart. But a lot of times, that void and emptiness, he may have an ache or a pain. He says, I don't want to tell Lily, and I may have a certain worry. I think he almost made me come to New York so that I wouldn't be there to worry. But it's not just me or just Bert. I don't know whether it's a longing to return, probably Freud said, to the mother, the original birth state, or to humanity, and those of the church that would say the longing to return to God. But we're surely never complete here on this earth.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to, do you believe that you will find your completeness after life?
Oh, well, I certainly hope, and I feel like I'm on the verge of some discovery. I don't like to delve too much because I don't want to go back to Bloomingdale. They'll say this gal's odd. But I know that Leconte de Nuit, if you recall the book that fascinated me so, the physicist that wrote Human Destiny, he said that the odd person of today is just the normal person, you know, a century from now when you have these dreams and ideals. And I think all those wonderful stars and planets that we're trying to reach so hard, we're going to flit all around them one day in the hereafter, and those will be the different stages until we reach our final place.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Freud. Have you ever thought about analysis?
Well, I did have Dr. A.A. Brill, who passed away. sent me to the original place to rest my little mind when I was 34 years old. And up there, they didn't believe, in my particular case, that there should be deep analysis. They feel that it takes about 1.5 years, and if you can't discover what's wrong in 1.5 years, that's bad. And if it takes any longer, it's real bad. If there was nothing wrong, there will be something wrong. And I don't mean to interfere with the psychoanalysis, but that was Dr. Brill's advice where I was concerned.
Lillian, when you add it all up, all of the tragic things that have happened to you, all of the unhappiness that rarely comes to one human being, and I ask this question perfectly seriously, have you ever, or do you now ever, regret the fact that you were born?
No, look, I knew my mother and I knew my father and so many wonderful people. I think it's all been worth it. I think I have a greater appreciation for life than I ever had, with all my little hesitancies, a greater gratitude. I'm gradually learning more compassion and understanding, and I just hope I can be. I don't intend to be or hope to be a saint, but I hope I can in some measure repay the good that's come to me. And I don't mean that as a Pollyanna or a little orphan Annie Glad all over. Annie Rooney, is that it? I just think that I think life has been very good to me, and it takes those steps to give you that appreciation.
Lil, what makes you happiest?
Well, I don't think that there's any way to judge a complete happiness. I don't think there's such a thing as happiness. I know my little dogs, though. You know, I have 2 little dogs out on the coast, and I got very lonesome. Do you think I have time to
I'm sorry, we only have about 15 seconds.
Oh, well, I had the cutest little thing about dogs. I think that we all get a great joy from the animal, the one thing in the world that loves you without question.
Lillian, thank you for coming and spending this half hour, and I know lots of people will want to read your new book, Beyond My Word.
Thank you, Mike.
Few comeback stories have been as compelling as Lillian Roth's, perhaps because it seems to be a story that has no end, no artificial happy conclusion. Miss Roth's comeback has been, in the truest sense, a search for herself. It has also been an inspiration for other searchers. I'll be back in a moment with a rundown on next week's guest, one of the world's youngest and most embattled diplomats from one of the world's youngest and most embattled countries. Once you've tried the rest, I think you'll agree that now Parliament with the recessed filter is best, and here's why. First, over 30,000 traps in this filter. No other popular cigarette delivers less nicotine and tar. Second, unlike every other filter, Parliament's filter is recessed, set deep down inside here, so that trapped nicotine and tar can't get on your lips. And third, because it's recessed, there's no bitter taste of nicotine and tar to spoil Parliament's pure tobacco flavor. And remember, Parliament is continuously tested and reported by the United States Testing Company, one of the world's leading independent testing laboratories. Smoke the best. Hi-Fi Parliament, now at popular price. Next week, we go after the story of violence in the Middle East, the threat to world peace from hostility between the Arabs and Israel. Our guest will be the Israeli ambassador to the United States and the United Nations, Abba Eban. If you're curious to know Ambassador Eban's answer to the Arab charge that Israel endangers world peace through a policy of warlike expansion, and his reply to the Arab statement that his country, Israel, must eventually go bankrupt, we'll go after those stories on the eve of Israel's 10th anniversary as a nation next week. Till then, for Mike Wallace, good night.
The Mike Wallace interview has been brought to you by the new High Filtration Parliament. Parliament, now for the first time at popular price.
Comedy is their business, and business is good. Join Sid Caesar, Imogene Coco, and Carnal Reiner tomorrow night on ABC Television Network.